It's about 20 after 7. We apologize for the late start. We're getting some setup here for a couple presentations. So, all right. Gloria is our administrator. I'd ask you to call a roll.
Trustee Cawthorn?
Here.
President Klein?
Here.
Trustee O'Brien-Bergwijn?
Here.
Trustee Staniford?
Here.
Trustee Thomas?
Here.
Whalen?
Here.
Zappa?
Here.
All present.
Thank you. Let's take a look at the the minutes from the regular board meeting of October 6th that you have in front of you. And I would entertain a motion, and then we can talk about any changes, corrections, or edits that you would like to present.
Move approval is written.
Thank you, Joe.
Tuesday, October 6th.
Have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Colleen. Any discussion, suggestions for changes, edits? All in favor of accepting the minutes as stated, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Any comments from the floor? This is an opportunity for residents to make the board aware of any topics, issues, etc. that you might have. As I look out over the audience, I can see that there won't be any. Item number 4, public hearing. I would ask if the audio-visual folks could do something to eliminate the echo, which I am picking up. Thank you. There's a public hearing regarding Ordinance 6-2009, amending Chapter 98, Zoning, Section 98-4, General Provisions, Subchapter K, 98-33, Commercial Districts, as listed C1, C2, C3, 98-34, Industrial/Commercial District I, and 98-56. This is so much fun to read this stuff. I hope you can appreciate that. Conditional uses regarding uses requiring or not requiring a permit of the village. And I would ask for a motion to open the public hearing on that paragraph.
I'll move that we open the public hearing.
Thank you, Jim. Second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Joe. It's open, a public hearing for any discussion. Any public comments? Gloria, jump in here if I've misspoken on any of this.
No,
Okay.
maybe Mr. Meiser would like to rebrief what you've already explained last meeting, or?
Do I do that in public part or after? I'd say this would be an appropriate time, and then we'll close it. Then the members of the board would have an opportunity to follow up with some questions if necessary or appropriate. By the way, this ordinance change is in your book. All the changes have been underlined, and our attorney, Terry Dunst, is here with me. So if you have anything you want to address to Terry, or Terry wants to jump in at any time, please do so.
Okay. We discussed this last month at your meeting. The Plan Commission has spent several meetings on this. Its origin was the Wisconsin State Supreme Court has ruled that municipalities can't be so overly restrictive on property rights. And so in North Hudson at present time, all commercial uses of property require a conditional use permit. And what these proposed changes in the ordinance will do is, for the various classifications of zoning, it establishes some permitted uses which do not require the appearance before the Plan Commission to get a conditional use permit. And so, as a Plan Commission, and with Terry's help, we've gone through, several iterations of it, and we've come up with what we feel is a good representative uses for the areas, permitted uses. There is some protections in there that I don't have the site in front of me. Gloria would know it, but so if somebody wants to come in and do something with their property in a particular zone, and it's permitted, basically all they have to do is stop in at the village and let them know, and there's no fee for that, and the administrative staff would steer them in the right direction, and that way the village still knows what's going on, but the people can still use their property as they see fit. And if it isn't one of the permitted uses or there's a question area, they can come and talk to the Plan Commission like in the past and pursue a conditional use permit.
Thank you, Mike.
I would follow up just with one more point of summary in that this is only about the commercial and the industrial
Yes.
use districts.
And we have 3 different commercial zones and 1 industrial zone.
Just to be on the safe side, if somebody wanted to come in with a business, it'd still be a good idea to come in and check with the clerk or the administrator to make sure.
Well, they still have to. That was one of the sections in
I
there.
want to make that clear. You
Yep.
you just can't go off and do it on your own. You need to, in effect, get permission and clearance, as it were.
Right, and the good thing about how Terry and Gloria have written that is that there's no fee for that part of it, and so it's not a restrictive type thing. It's just to come on into the village hall and say what you'd like to do, and then they'll be able to look up the ordinance and say, oh yeah, that's permitted, or you need to go and get a conditional use permit.
Good. Gloria, would you like to jump in here too?
It'll help us in situations like in the shop yards where we may not be aware of a business operating, and then the Postal Service is wondering where this address is, and we have no idea that this company is there.
And the fire department too.
Right, and the fire department, yes. All of those emergency contacts. There's a couple of other reasons, and I'm drawing a blank.
But those are the 2 main reasons. It's in everyone's best interest. But it definitely makes doing business in the village of North Hudson less restrictive than it was. And again, it all started with a ruling from the state Supreme Court.
Mike, I'm going to ask you if you'll stay up there for just a moment
Sure.
and ask if we can close the public hearing. I think it'd be appropriate so that the board could ask some questions. Well, let's see.
Nobody in the public.
I'm looking for somebody here from the village. There's nobody out there from the village.
Okay.
Entertain a motion to
Move that
close.
we close the public hearing, or, close the public hearing.
Need a second?
Second.
Thank you, Colleen. All in favor of closing the public hearing? Aye?
Aye.
Thank you. Any board members have any questions that they would like to ask of Mike, of Terry, Gloria?
I think we've been through this pretty thoroughly, and
Yes, we
I
have.
think we can just really move on to other things.
I-
I think you did a great job, Mike.
I have one question, George. You had a comment last month about adding some words. Did those words get added to your?
I think so.
Okay.
Okay. Jim, do you want to make a motion? I don't ask you to read this whole thing in the motion, but I think we need a motion to adopt this ordinance.
Well, I would simply make a motion to move to adopt the ordinance 062009, amending Chapter 98 zoning for commercial uses.
Thank you.
Oh, commercial and industrial, sorry.
Commercial and industrial uses. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Darrell. Any other discussion? I would then ask for a roll call vote because this is an adoption of an ordinance or a change of an ordinance.
And the date of adoption would be this date, is that correct?
Date as of, I would say as, that
Well,
makes
the
sense?
effective date, I think, is when it's published.
And that date would be?
Well,
Whenever it gets in the paper.
Make somebody building something tomorrow?
we should be able to have it in by next Thursday.
But when we're
But-
signing it, it's adopted by the village board.
This day,
Yes.
right.
Okay, so it will be
Yes.
November the 3rd. So we'll change the TH to an RD. The three.
Well, we were going to do this several months ago.
Yeah, I know.
It could have been.
Could have
fall.
been, but it isn't. It's going to be a bird. I want to make sure it's, you know.
Yes.
I got a reputation. I have to live up to it.
Cross the Ts.
Cross the
dot
Ts
Is.
out, put in the RDs. All right. All right,
Roll
Gloria,
call
you want to do a roll call on this? I do the roll call?
Yes, you do, sir.
Sandra?
Yes.
Darrell?
Yes.
Joe? Jim?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Colleen?
Yes.
Yes.
Mark? Yeah, George, yes.
Another
Okay.
hat, huh?
All righty. That takes care of that resolution. All right. I would like to do, Jim,
We can do names.
we're going to move public welfare up, but I would like to do resolution 2009-8 in support of cable television first. And we do have Nate Skoog here from Cablevision. And Nate, if you will take the podium in case there are some questions, and we'll also ask you if you'd like to not only field some questions, but if you'd like to just make a comment. The board has in front of it the resolution in support of cable television PEG remedial legislation. And as I read this anyway, I wanted to make sure that I was understanding it carefully enough to agree that we looked down, be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution, we're going to send it out to our legislators, and it will be this document that we send out.
I believe that's what Hudson did, yes.
Okay. Would you like to just talk about this thing? I know you spoke about it at the last board meeting, but I think it'd be appropriate to just clarify or reiterate some of the high points of this.
This is in support of Representative Gary Hebel's bill, and he's from Sun Prairie, which is just outside of Madison. So it's reversing some of the things that were passed in Act 42, which was the Cable Competition Act of 2008. In that act, it took a lot of funding away from public access TV stations, and the one that you're watching right now, if you're not here in the audience, is Hudson, North Hudson Community Access TV. It's Channel 15 right now. And so here in Hudson, we'll lose about $40,000 worth of funding starting after 2010 if our PEG fees, which is Public Educational Government Access fees, are taken away. And those are basically fees that come in to help us complete programming, pay for equipment, things like that. So that will go away. In addition to making it difficult, if AT&T comes in to compete, like they have in Madison and Milwaukee, it makes it very expensive for the stations to get on their system. So, for instance, there's one town outside of Milwaukee that's paid about $7,000. The station had to pay that money in order to get their station onto the AT&T system. In the past, these were all things covered by the cable company. So now the municipalities and the PEG stations are having to pay for it. For instance, WYOU in Madison, which is a public access station, is close to shutting down once these PEG fees go away. So it's about local control, and it's about municipalities having control instead of the state having control over these cable issues. Act 42 already took away a lot of the powers that our local cable board has and kind of brought those powers to the state. And so it took it away from local, utility control over these types of things.
If this is not overturned, could I assume then that anybody who has cable access would then have to pay a higher fee so that they would be able to have that, and that fee would then be reversed?
No, we wouldn't be able to
wouldn't be able to-
collect any fees.
How would you?
So we have a PEG fee right now, which
Yeah.
is on your cable bill. It's a matter of 85 cents that covers, that comes to us for support of programming and stuff. So that fee would basically go away then on the cable bill, that 85 cents per month.
Then how could you possibly have funds to continue an operation.
Well, the other way that we survive is off of what's called a franchise fee. So when a cable company comes into your community, they pay a franchise fee, and that's also what supports. So that's why I was saying it's taking a portion of our funding away, which is that 42 cents, plus making it more expensive for us to operate in the future.
Would it get to the point where if we wanted to be able to broadcast on cable access TV, we would have to pay a fee? We meaning the Village of North Hudson?
No.
Okay.
But, so yeah, basically it's not overturning anything. It's a new bill which continues to allow the competition and saying that other cable companies can come into the village and compete. But it's just that support of public access TV, which kind of got lumped into Act 42, with the cable companies. So it's got some other things in there, such as I brought up last time, which was control of the cable franchises going away from the DFI, which is the Department of Financial Institutions. Right now, U.S. taxpayers pay to, after Act 42 was passed, you pay to renew those franchises, and all the complaints for the state basically go to an office of a few people. So that would go to a different office, and those fees would be returned to the cable company having to pay for them rather than the taxpayers.
I'll throw it out to other members of the board. Any questions or comments that you might have of Nate?
So this resolution that we're passing tonight is just basically in support of that bill. The bill right now has, I believe, 25 supporters right now in Madison, and I think they need 50, so they're continuing to work, and hopefully they get more and more on our part.
Does that include Kitty and Sheila?
I don't think they've stated yet whether they support it or not.
Thank you. Anything, Terry? You're okay with it?
It's fine, yeah. I mean, it's a policy decision. If you favor the PEGs, you should pass this resolution, and if you don't, you shouldn't.
Okay. It's your chance to ask questions here, folks. Any? Thank you, Nate.
Thank you. Thanks for supporting that.
Well, I haven't voted yet.
Well, if you do.
Okay. I'm looking for a motion here, folks.
Move to adopt resolution number 2009-08, resolution in support of cable television PEG remedial legislation.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Because this is a resolution, I'd like to have a roll call vote here for the record. So this time we'll start with Mark.
Yes.
Colleen?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
George, yes. Jim?
Yes.
Darrell?
Yes.
Sandra?
Yes.
Passes unanimously. Thank you very
Thank you.
much, Nate.
Thanks very much.
I would ask if, would it be appropriate for me to ask the village clerk to draft a cover letter to this resolution? And then see to it that this gets, I will be glad to stop in the office tomorrow and sign a clean copy of this resolution. And then I will even sign the letter, the cover letter that you will draft. And we'll get that sent out to both Sheila and Kitty. Thank you very much. Now I'd like to move the public welfare up to the next. Oh, Mike.
This is a chair update for the planning commission. We didn't meet last week, or this month, so.
I guess we're
I know,
going
but
to
I
take
have
care
two
of the
mic-
planning
that's fine.
commission.
That's fine.
Okay. Does that mean you can go home now, or you want to stay for the meeting? Thanks, Mike. Okay. Public welfare. Is that what you want?
Yeah, if we can do that, then we can get Mark out of here a little bit earlier.
Well, yeah. He's got a long ride home.
Do you want to introduce Mark?
No, we'll let you because you've been working with this young fellow.
That's good. Well, we're nearly to the completion of the contract for our new solid waste hauler, Veolia. And we have with us tonight Mark Vinyl from Veolia. So we have an opportunity for the board to ask him any questions and introduce him to the village. So if you want to grab a spot up at the microphone there, Mark, I'd greatly appreciate that.
And I see that we have some show and tell here. So Mark, we'll let you, I think our esteemed folks back in the office back here can manipulate the cameras too. So.
Okay.
Pulling these in front of the screen here a little bit.
All right, well, thank you. We'll do the show and tell portion of the program first, and then if we have any other questions that I can try to address, we'll go ahead and do that. But first of all, Veolia is very pleased to be, looks like we're moving forward to be working with the village. And
I don't have.
let me just also point out, we're very happy as well that we just renewed our agreement with the City of Hudson as well. So we have a nice presence here in western Wisconsin. I'll do the most I can to answer any questions. I do represent our operations out of Eau Claire, Wisconsin, including managing our 7 Mile Creek landfill and our Eau Claire hauling operations. I do not manage the operations and the routes that would be collecting the waste and recycling for the village here, but at least for now I'm trying to help out as much as I can as the regional manager, David Sonnentag, whom you've been working with, was not available to be here this evening. So I'll do the best I can, and if I can't answer a question directly, I'll make sure I take good notes and get back to you with the answer. First of all, really to try to...
Mark, if you would take that mic with you, I think our home audience, of course it's wireless. There's no popcorn operation.
This is a nice operation here. Is this on, by the way?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, very good. The program that we have negotiated or really bid upon and set up for the village would include both collecting of trash and recyclables. And the trash services that we're offering would have one of 3 containers for your home. We've got a 35-gallon cart, 64-gallon cart, and a 95-gallon cart. We would pick this waste up weekly. And in addition to that, we would provide this size cart, 64-gallon cart, for all of your recyclables to be placed in. Currently, I believe you have an 18-gallon bin, which is about that size, and the industry standard is actually going to a larger recycling container, which allows people to take advantage of putting more recyclables in a larger container and being able to wheel it out to the driveway. Of course, there are some disadvantages as well. However, we feel for the greater good, it's better to have a larger container for more recycling. Recycling, I understand, it will be picked up weekly as well. I can tell you that one of the greatest advantages is the more recycling we put in here, the less we have to send to our landfills. So that is the primary reason for going to a larger container. Once again, trash service, you could have one of these 3 sizes. That would be picked up weekly, and recycling would be this size container, also picked up weekly.
Mark, spend a couple minutes telling us what could go into that recycling-only bin.
Okay, recycling only, and I see we're calling it single sort in one portion of the contract, but this would allow us to put all of your fiber materials in there, your paper, cardboard, magazines, newspapers, and also what we call our rigid containers here, aluminum, tin, number 1, number 2 plastics, glass products,
number 1 and
stuff like
number
that.
2 plastics may need some definition.
We can definitely try to create some better definition as far as that. And we would be working with Jennifer Havens from St. Croix County Planning Department to put some better definition of what those would be. And definitely number 1 and number 2 plastics. Some people may say that's recyclable and others may not. So we'll do the best we can in developing some better definition of what that recyclable product can be.
Most of the containers have that
Stamped right on it.
stamped right on it, correct?
Yes, they do.
For newspapers, do you have to bundle them before you put them in there?
No, you would not. All that we would ask is that whatever you put in here fits inside the container. So newspapers could be put in loose. Everything really could be put in loose. The largest challenge would be your cardboard boxes. We'd need to have those cut down or folded up so they would fit in this container. Yes.
The recycling container has a gray lid, I see, I assume, so that that's distinguishable from the trash container in someone's garage. Human nature being what it is, and mistakes can be made. What happens on your end if someone inadvertently throws a sack of trash in the recycling container and it's picked up? What happens downstream of that?
Well, let me answer, comment to your comment. The color of the lid will definitely be a different color. Right now it's gray. It may actually be a red colored lid, and all the other containers would typically be green. So we are planning to have a much different color lid. As far as somebody inadvertently putting trash in, it'll happen, no doubt.
It will happen.
It
no
will
matter what
happen.
color the lid is.
Yep, we understand that. It will happen. What would happen is our vendor, where we bring all the recycling to, they have a mass sorting facility. They will go through all that waste material, and it'll be sorted out into the various commodities, different types of glass, plastic, paper, cardboard, stuff like that. They already realize that trash is inadvertently thrown in with recycling periodically. And so that's all factored into our pricing with them, so that they will be able to then take that trash out, sort it properly, and then dispose of that material in a disposal facility, so it's not, messing up the recycling. But that's just part of what happens.
We're going to have those containers on display here in the Village Hall, either right inside the main door or right out front, so that people will have an opportunity to come by and take a look and see, okay, which size container do I need? It is possible, and I'm picking up, Mark, on something that you said, and perhaps you want to add to it, that middle size is how many gallons?
It's a 64-gallon container, so
it is conceivable that you would have two 64-gallon containers at your residence, one with a red top, and one with a green top. I want to make that clear. This is just for size, but all recyclable only containers will be of the 64-gallon size. Correct?
Yep, that is correct.
Okay. Anybody else? Now, Mark has traveled 65 miles to get here for this presentation. I'd hate for him to have to go home saying, boy, I'll bet I'll get some phone calls when I get home.
Unlisted, right?
Oh, I'm definitely listed, but fortunately for me, I get to go back to Menominee. I don't live 65 miles away. So
okay, 40, 45.
Friendly faces in the neighborhood, I see.
I would like to just address a few things, since you did make the trip, and real briefly, to our residents. Veolia will be sending out a welcome letter, and we'll be requesting some input from the village residents, mainly as to what size solid waste container that they would be wanting to have. We will anticipate starting out everybody with a 64-gallon single pass recycle container, and it appears to be large at this point, but once you start utilizing single stream, or is it single stream or single pass, Mark?
Well, actually we throw two different terms around currently that we need to identify. Single sort and single stream are two of the terms identified. The whole concept is really that all the recycling is put in a single container, and that the resident or the customer does not have to sort that material into different waste streams, as certain communities do require yet.
Okay. That's what we're doing now. Yeah, and that is basically what we're doing now. So it's just that we're using a smaller container. But we do want to be clear with residents that this does not mean that everything goes into one container and gets taken care of. We have a container for waste, and we have one for single sort that basically includes paper, plastic, metals, tin cans, and bottles of any sort. And with that being said, Veolia will be sending out a letter to the village residents requesting what size solid waste container they want. It's our goal in an effort to try to reduce waste in landfills to increase the recycling by, taking the time necessary to make sure what can go into that single sort container does find its way in there. So do be aware of this letter as it comes out, and I would say, probably be out by the end of the month. I'm guessing we'll have that set. And realistically, I think that's pretty much it. We welcome you to the village. We are looking forward to this. I just want the residents to know that I think we put together a very workable contract, and the future of it, we should be with Veolia for 5 years. The only thing to be aware of is that if, in fact, fuel escalation charges occur over $4 a gallon, you may see slight fluctuations in your billing, but we did that in an effort to get the initial cost of this program within reason. So we did our very best throughout this entire process to do what we can for the residents, and I think we've succeeded. So with that being said, that's great. Realistically, all of the village residents currently should have paid their last billing, which would have been the quarter, which would be October, November, and December. We're finding that a small amount are billed on a non-quarterly basis, where it's November, December, and January. So if that is the case, we're asking that they make their final check out to Waste Management, and then they will be refunded, I believe. Is that correct, Gloria?
Now, do they have to call in and ask for that credit for that last month?
I would think that based on the fact that it is not everybody who's running into that problem, that they probably should contact Waste Management and let them know that they were charged for an additional month and that they would receive a refund from Waste Management.
We were actually unaware that there were some people, and I suppose it depends on when you sign up. So I suppose technically there could be a December, January, and February even.
It sounds to me that the majority, if not nearly all of the residents, are on a pure quarterly basis. But if there's any questions, address it to the Village Hall or to Waste Management. But starting January 1st, everything will be switching over to Veolia, and we look forward to it. There will be, cart changes that will be required over, the first year. Once we get this evaluated and see how it works. But we're really trying to do our very best, not only for residents, but for the world at large. I think that single stream recycling is here to stay, and they're making it easy for us. So what more can you ask for?
I just throw out just one other thing. Something you just said, Jim, made me pick up on this, is to let the public know that once they make a decision on which size container they want, they can change their mind down the road. They're not stuck on this for forever. If they find out that they're not filling let's pick your big one, your 96, I think it is, isn't it? And they say, geez, I never get past halfway. Darn, I'm stuck with this monster. And they can go to a smaller one later on.
Yes, they definitely can.
There's a grace period in there after which then there's a charge for it, if I remember that.
Yes, I was just going to see if I could review.
One free change.
Yeah, one per year, I believe.
One per year.
And I can see that because families change in size as the years go by. And I have a feeling that some people may start with the little one, and then as the family grows, I ended up with a big one, yeah, right? What do you think, Gloria? You
Oh,
end
yeah.
up with that? And it goes the other way, too, as the children leave the flock or leave the nest, we go down to the small one. So thank you very much, Mark. Appreciate your coming out here and showing off your garbage cans.
All right. Well, thank you very much. We appreciate the opportunity to serve the village, and we'll continue to work real hard, smoothing, ironing any issues we have out yet with the agreement, and moving forward to go ahead and send out the letters and make sure we have carts and containers available per everybody's order. So we're ready to go by the first of the year.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank
Excellent.
you very much.
And just a final, I made this comment before, but I'll make it one more time. It is our intent to make sure that this contract is out on our website so that you will be able to read all the details. And if you still have questions, feel free to contact the Village Hall, and we'll take care of those, any questions or issues that you might have. Thanks, Mark. Yeah, I think you guys are going to want to use the screen, right? And they may want to set the projector on it, but I don't think so.
Stable they are.
What's it?
See how stable they
See
are.
how stable they are. Yeah. I know they're watertight, airtight. Probably don't want to play in them. The next item on the agenda is, it says here, President's comments. And you'll notice we just have 3 items on there. First is the resignation of Plan Commission member Paul Rohde. I have spoken with Paul, and he is resigning. We, as a board, extend our appreciation for his service to the village on the Plan Commission. Mary Wecken will be, if the board, this is my recommendation, and if the board approves, Mary Wecken will be appointed to replace Paul on that Plan Commission. So I will make the motion that we accept Mary Wecken as the replacement on the Plan Commission for the resignation of Paul Rohde. I don't think we needed a motion, did we, to accept Paul's resignation?
No.
Do we need that?
I'm not sure what your ordinance says on that. I mean, the state law doesn't require it. It would allow you to do it, but I'm not sure if we have a special ordinance that'll.
We've
Provides for
never,
that?
for the resignation.
Oh, for the
Just-
resignation.
yeah, for the
no,
resignation.
I'm
Okay.
sure you can just accept it.
All right. Is there a second to my motion to accept Mary Wecken?
Yeah, I'll second, George.
Thank you, Mark. Any questions or discussions? If not, I'll call a motion. All in favor of accepting Mary, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you. With Paul's resignation, also went with that resignation was his membership on the Extraterritorial Zoning Committee. And after talking with Mike about that, he offered that position to Terry Fellon. I've talked with Terry, and he is very happy to be able to accept that additional membership. So I'll make a motion to accept the recommendation of Terry Fellon to the Extraterritorial Zoning Committee.
I'll second.
Thank you, Joe. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The only other thing I had was the reminder that Thursday, 8 o'clock in the morning, St. Croix Government Center for the EOC training, that is Emergency Operations Center training. You did not need to register, just show up. Gloria, the table is yours.
Committee too. Our meeting for finance on Friday also will be at 9 o'clock in the morning. A finance committee, mainly to work on the budget. And we will be asking for a special board meeting in December to approve the budget. We're going to need to have a 15-day publication, which means that budget won't be ready to be approved on the 1st of December, so we would need a meeting after Thursday of that week, and I'm sure that nobody wants to meet on Friday, unless it would be Friday morning or Monday or Tuesday, but I'd hate to go past that.
Give us those date options. December 1st is a Tuesday. So our regular board meeting will be December 1st. As I look at the calendar, yep, December 1st, so.
The 8th is on a Tuesday, 7th would be Monday, and then what is Friday, the 4th?
December, I'll just ask if December 8th at, pick an appropriate time. I'll make it early, 4:30.
35, whatever.
Talk to me, folks, 4:30?
Works for me.
Works for me.
Gloria, is this in place of the meeting on the 1st or in addition?
In addition to.
Special meeting.
We can't do it on the 1st? Too much to ask for, is that what you're saying?
The budget would have had to be to the paper this Friday.
Oh, okay, I'm following you now.
So it actually is based on.
I get it, okay.
Okay, won't go any further. Okay, let's make it the 8th, and now we're looking for a time. I would submit 4:30.
Works for me.
Yeah, I could make it work.
That works for me.
Special board meeting, December 8th, 4:30. The only topic on the agenda will be to adopt the budget. Is that correct? Is that the
It'll
way you wanna
actually
word it?
be a public hearing.
Yep.
To adopt the budget.
And we can advertise that now, in fact, couldn't we?
Yeah.
We just did.
Yep.
Busy time. Busy time.
The only other thing I had was our gracious clerk has put on the website minutes and the agendas, and I'll let her take it from here. We've had requests from residents that this be put on, and just to let everybody know.
Is it on? See the little red light? Thanks. I didn't
Okay.
see it earlier.
Okay. As Gloria mentioned, we've had a number of requests to update our website with meeting agendas and minutes, and we've gone ahead and started doing that. Sandra has helped me learn a little bit about the website, so I am posting all notices or all meeting notices on the website, agendas, and then following up with minutes once they're approved. So if you go to the northhudsonvillage.org website, from the home page, you go to the section called Public Meetings, and a calendar is displayed on that web page, and you just click on the date. The meeting will be identified on that particular date, and then within there is a link where you can actually go to the document and view the agenda. So that is available at this point for everybody to take a look at if they're interested in learning more about what we're discussing at the different meetings. So that's it.
Thank you, Becky.
And we have a combined board calendar now, so please, if all the board members will check that out. We're trying to keep that updated on a daily basis, but it allows you to see everything at a glance instead of waiting for your board packets.
And there we go, flying into the 21st century. Gotta love it. All right. We've accomplished the Plan Commission meeting or section already. There having been none, and we let Mike leave, so We now move into agenda item number 8, Personnel and Finance Committee recommendations. And we need a motion to pay our bills.
Yeah, I think I made that at
And
finance. If
I
can
think
find
you
it
did
here, I'll
too,
make
Joe.
it again.
So you want to do it again?
Yeah, I recommend approval of the October 2009 non-reoccurring claims totaling $19,714.93.
Second.
Any questions or discussion on paying our bills? Any questions about what any of those bills are? I believe this would require a roll call vote, so Sandra, will start with you this time.
Yes.
Darrell?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
George, yes. Joe?
Yes.
Colleen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mark? Yep. I guess we'll pay our bills. Next item is a bank loan bid selection, and you'll see that the issue statement in front of you. We have been talking about this for a couple months, and so I would entertain someone reading the motion as stated.
I can try it again. Move to accept the loan. Well, first of all, this is for the financing Highway 35 resurfacing project and the Village Hall standby emergency generator purchase. So those two items total $70,885. So I move to accept a loan bid from the Riverbank in the amount of $70,885 with a 3.95% fixed rate over a 5-year repayment schedule with 2 installments per year beginning in March 2010 and no prepayment penalties.
I'll second that.
This would come to approximately $7,830 twice a year for the village to pay that loan. Any further discussion on the part of the board? Again, a roll call vote is in order. We'll start with Mark this
Yes.
time. Colleen?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
George, yes. Jim?
Yes.
Errol?
Yes.
Sandra?
Yes.
Very good. Next item under finance would be amendment to the employee handbook, redefinition of part-time employees' hours. Gloria, take it away.
Well, what this would allow is, currently, we have 20 hours and above is considered eligible for benefits. And this came about because we were on the state insurance, and with the combination of the retirement system and the state insurance, it was required that we offer benefits to people who worked 20-plus hours. What this would do is change that definition of a full-time employee that works at least 1,560 hours per year, which means 30 hours a week. And the definition of a part-time employee would be less than 1,560 hours per week. And so the people that work between 600 hours and 1,560 would be not eligible for health insurance coverage or vacation and sick time accrual. Whereas people who work 600 plus hours would still be qualified for a retirement system.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions of Gloria regarding this issue? If not, I would entertain a motion to accept the suggested changes to the employee handbook that you have in front of you.
I'll move.
Thank you, Mark.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you. 2010 budget update and discussion. We have 4 items for discussion under this. The first of which is the placement of fire protection charges on the water/sewer bills. And that's not this. Right?
Correct.
All right. You want, Gloria, would you talk about the necessity for this?
Well, basically, we're one of the few communities still left with the fire protection charges on the coming out of the operating budget and being pretty much covered by the tax roll. What this would do is take the expense for that charge and have it placed on the water and sewer bills. And did you want me to go any further than that, or did Terry, you want to explain the process?
I can give you a little background on the whole thing. If we just back up to the whole business of providing water to residents, the water utility needs some amount of money to function, whatever that amount is, X, whatever. And the Public Service Commission, the PSC, gets involved in that and determines that. So there is some amount of money that's needed to provide water to the residents, to the businesses, whatever. Now, of that money, you can sort of break it into 2 parts. You can break it into just the general water that is used by the community, and then you can break it into a fire protection water. You need a certain amount of excess capacity in case there's a big fire, as we've found out here. So what that's sometimes commonly known as is the hydrant rental. And that amount is also determined by the PSC. They look at the whole amount that it costs that utility to operate, and I'm simplifying this, but for tonight it'll be enough. They divide it into 2 parts. There's the part that it costs to provide everybody water, and there's the hydrant rental charge. And that's the amount of it costs to have a little bit of excess capacity to fight fires. The hydrant rental charge can be paid in one of 2 ways. It can either be paid by the village to the water utility, and then it comes out of the general tax revenue, so that the citizens are paying for it out of their general tax revenue. Or the hydrant rental charge can be billed directly to the water users. Those are the 2 ways to pay for it. Currently, the Village of North Hudson just has it come out of the general revenue. That's the way we're paying that right now. And so I believe, that's about all I have to say about it, unless people have questions for me. But the question before us tonight is, do we want to continue that, or do we want to move that fee, that cost, from the general tax onto the specific utility bills that go out?
Terry, one of the issues that comes up here is those residences that do not currently have a water charge because they have their own well. They live in the village, in the municipality, and take advantage of certain things within the village that do have the necessity for water. And so how is this worked out for those residents who don't have a water meter?
I believe that they are just going to get a benefit that they don't pay for.
That's one way to do it. Well, there are other options.
There may be. I mean, I didn't look into that issue. I could look into that issue. I know you can certainly have a special charge for fire protection. So probably we could make it work that way. We could find a way to bill people for at least that piece, what's called the rental, the hydrant rental. There may be a way to do that.
Russ, could you comment on that?
Yeah.
At the microphone, please.
Sorry.
Yeah, we pulled out a copy of City of Menominey's resolution when they created the same process for the hydrant rental. And just reading through it tonight, at the beginning of the meeting, I didn't see anything in there on how they dealt with that, but I can assure you I'll check with Menominey and some of the other municipalities on how they handled areas where they don't have meters and so forth. And again, work with the village attorney on legally through the PSC process, can you charge those residents for that fire hydrant rental and fire protection services? So I'm sure there's other communities that have the same areas within their communities where they're still on well and septic, they're in the village, but they don't have a fire hydrant in front of their house or in their neighborhood, and they don't have a meter. So how are those handled? So, and if we can find something with another community, the league probably has some information for us on that too.
Russ, would you, just for our viewing audience, identify yourself?
Yes, sorry about that. I'm Russ Kivanimi with Cedar Corporation. Engineer, work closely with Kevin Oyam, your village engineer.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Joe, do you want to say anything to this topic at this time? Okay.
Nope.
Gloria, were we looking for a motion on this? I didn't see a suggested motion, and I'm not sure how to word this one. Maybe Terry?
Well, I mean, again, it's up to the village to decide if they would like to do this. And if they would like to do this, I think all that's needed tonight, what we're going to have to do as a process is go back to the PSC, and they will determine how the rates work out, and they'll get with the water utility bill and get that going, that process on to the utility bills. What we need to do tonight is just have a motion where the village decides that, yes, that's what we want to do. So the motion could be worded quite simply. I move that we remove the fire protection charge from the general revenue, from the budget, from the tax roll, and request the water utility to bill the customers directly.
I'd like to leave that piece out until we get clarification on those residents who don't get a water bill.
Sure.
To see if they're...
We will certainly find that out, George. I just don't want to make any kind of promises on that, because this is heavily regulated by the PSC.
And have it billed to residents directly.
If it becomes a user fee-based service instead of a property tax item, do you have the ability to not have the service?
I don't think you have a choice in that matter. If there's a fire,
paying
your residents, you're going to get a fire truck come visit your house. You can't opt out of not having your property protected. That would go with, that'd be like saying, well, I don't want to pay for the police department to come to my house.
Okay.
So remove that. A fire at your house, it puts
it's okay.
neighbors in danger also.
Just raised the question.
I'm just anticipating what the legal would, Mr. Dunst here would say. Am I right?
I would agree with you, George. Yeah.
You can't.
There's no way. Mark, there would not be a way to opt out. Yeah.
It would seem to me that we're facing the dilemma of a fairly ambiguous motion at this point until we have the specificity of what it is that we want to do. It's clear that the intent is to remove it from the general fund, but what to do with it in terms of the methodology and the indecision at the moment about those with meters and without meters is open-ended. Personally, I would prefer to have Terry do that research and to come back with a very clean motion that says this is the intent and this is what we're going to do.
Well, I would agree with you if this was, let's say, the month of April. Part of this has to do with balancing our budget for the year 2010. If we don't pass a motion to this effect, it jeopardizes balancing our budget.
All right. I understand the point you're making, but it's only a half of an action. It removes it from the budget, but it's unclear where it's going. and it still has to be paid.
I think that if it clarifies that it's being billed directly to the residents, from there, the PSC it's my understanding that they just need this motion in order to go to the next step and do those rates and calculate what everyone would pay, because they don't want to do that part without the board's support, because that, of course, is going to take time and manpower, and then it comes back to us with the clarification on how much it's going to cost per resident and commercial and however, whatever rate is decided by the PSC.
Might just say utility users or water users. Yeah, that's fine.
Don't want that.
Okay.
That opens up a can of worms. Let me try a motion and see if anyone, I'll run it up the poll and see if anybody salutes. Remove fire protection charges from the tax roll and bill directly to the residences and businesses.
I'll second it with provision, take out residences and businesses, but just do end users.
Well, end users.
Well, or property owners, because that's what it's going to be directed to if
How
we
about
do it.
property owners?
Yeah, I'll take that.
Okay.
Because
Except that it's not property owners. You can have a renter that's getting a utility bill.
Users? No.
What did you
I
say?
mean, it's clear that this is not going to be a
End
property tax
users.
item, it's going to be a user item.
Well, it's a user item and property owner item because you're going to have the cases of, like Joe, who's not an end user of water service.
Well, he is an end user of the fire protection charge, though, and that's the only open piece here that we don't know
How
tonight.
about that? All end users of the fire protection charge, currently under the fire protection umbrella. That includes everybody. Keeps it the way it is. We're just changing it out. And Darrell, in response to yours, I say, given the timing of it, if there's a real, I think this is going to pass several filters before it gets back to us, and we can always change it again next year. But I don't think it'd be, if it gets that far in the time to get it done for our budget, I don't think that's a problem. I would let them get it going with it tonight so we can get moving with it. I understand your concern, but it's nothing we can't address again if it proves to be a real headache, but I don't think it'll get back to us in a headache form. It'll just stop.
The next time you see it, it'll be in a resolution, correct, with rates and details?
Yes, correct. The sample resolution I have here, and Gloria can make you some copies of the city of Menominee we gave her today. Fortunately, we had to dig through their files back to 2002. We couldn't remember when it was done, and we finally found it today. So otherwise, you probably would have had it in your packet. But the front page is the resolution, and then there's a whole bunch of attachments that go with that, that would be working with the city attorney and staff and so forth that goes with that resolution and addresses all the items that you're talking about. And also would need to receive PSC approval before this final resolution comes. So what Mark's saying, yes, that's true. There's going to be some information and setting the rates per meter sizes and so forth through the village and PSC that'll need to be done with this final resolution. And to help you if you're thinking of the motion, they refer to the same thing that Mark said, the users, the way they have it in their final resolution, they just call it general service customers and how they referred to, how that's going to be dispersed to the property owners and so forth.
I like that, general service customers.
Right. That's how they have it defined in Menominee's resolution. So if that helps you with wordage.
Which is everyone.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Instead of end users or.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Read that again.
Yeah. They have the City of Menominee requested the Public Service Commission the authority to establish rates that would provide for direct billing of water utility, public fire protection costs to general service customers based on equivalent meter size This request being in conformance with Wisconsin statutes, and they list the statutes, numbers, and so forth, which provides municipalities the option to include the public fire protection charges directly in the bills of the water general service customers.
No, we're going to abbreviate that considerably so as to
with
leave
the-
out anything.
I can give you this too.
With the exception that said the water bills of.
That's
the
what I was
customer.
saying. We're going to leave all that out. Okay, so right now I think we'll just leave it at general service customers.
Is that acceptable to you, Mark, as the
Yeah, that's
second on
fine,
that?
yeah.
Instead of end users, we'll just substitute in there general service customers under the fire protection services, or do we need that?
I think if you follow this and stop right here. The village of,
No, we're not even going to put a whereas in there.
no.
We're just
Read
going
it
to
as
say.
a motion, though, like I move.
I move that the.
Well, we're not creating a resolution.
No.
No,
Gloria's just showing me this one.
it's
I'm
not
gonna
a
say,
term
yep.
paper. Let's get on.
Fine, we just, okay, the village, I move that the Village of North Hudson requests the Public Service Commission the authority to establish,
Request of,
let's clean this up before I read it out loud.
The Public Service Commission is the one who establishes these rates. It's not us. They're going to establish these rates.
You can say it, you can say it. Go ahead, and then I'll say I agree
you
with
got
that.
it.
Village requests the Public Service Commission the authority to establish rates that would provide for the direct billing of water utility, PFP,
That's the public fire protection cost.
public fire protection cost to general service customers.
And Kathy, I can give you a copy
You can
of
put a
that.
period there.
Yep, I just did. I ended. How's that sound, Mark?
Oh, sweet, George.
Thank you.
It's like poetry.
You gonna second that one?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, anything.
You're too easy, Mark. Further discussion.
Well, we gotta get this.
Something tells me this is going to be more complex than selecting the size of a garbage can. Before it's all said and done. If there's no further discussion, this is not a resolution, it's not an ordinance, it's a simple motion. And at this time, we're not spending any more money than what we would then for, I guess, Terry, for you and your organization to begin the research. Are you the ones then who contact the PSC?
No,
or
actually,
either?
the water utility does. So
The water
Gloria
utility.
or the clerk will contact the water utility, who will then contact the PSC.
Thank you. That clarifies the process.
Yep.
Okay.
And it should be by roll call.
I would say this should be a roll
It really
call.
is
Roll call?
changing budget numbers and
Okay. Joe, do you have any comment?
No.
Okay. Start with Mark?
Let's go.
Yes.
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 Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. We have, the next item has to do with the setting up a storm sewer utility fund. And Russ, are you going to be putting on this little
Yes.
show here? No, that's not the one we want. It's actually the light switch that you want is over behind the TV.
Okay, good evening. Again, I'm Russ Kivenemy, Cedar Corporation. Pleased to be here tonight to give you some educational information regards to creating a stormwater utility. We met this week, or last week, with Gloria and Mark, and and Kevin Oyam and I had just educated staff on the creation of a stormwater utility. I don't know how familiar you are with it, but it's been a very popular subject in Wisconsin. It's a, first thing before I get started, I just want to say it's not an additional tax. It's not an additional charge. It's just a more equitable way of, again, taking money out of your general fund and creating a utility and putting it on your utility bill. So in summary, just keep that in mind. It's nothing new. It's just a more equitable and fair way. And after I go through the presentation, hopefully you'll understand that and I can answer some questions. I don't know if everyone have in their packet a colored copy of the PowerPoint presentation, but I've got 15 copies here if you want us to hand those out.
We have copies, but they're not colored.
Okay. We have colored here.
Mine's colored.
A little bit easier to read in the color than the black and white, but it's the same thing we have in our PowerPoint presentation.
Oh, there's just one page that was colored because of graphs, so you could see them. Thank you.
And just to give you some updates, again, I think some of the leaders in the state that the first to create stormwater utilities in your area was the city of River Falls, city of Eau Claire. They were the first to create stormwater utilities. There have been a number that have created stormwater utilities, primarily on the east side of the state. Right now, we're working with, we created a stormwater utility for the city of Menominee a year ago. We're currently working with the city of Prescott, village of Somerset, city of Durand with creating a utility. And again, as you're going through your budget process, they all are finding, and looking for creative ways of paying for stormwater-related costs in lieu of coming out of your general tax levy, basically, and putting it on a utility charge. Again, keep more money local and having local control of those costs and keeping them locally. So why do you want to treat stormwater? With your recodification that you did several years ago and work that we did with your comprehensive plan, you created a comprehensive stormwater management ordinance that's in your code book. The village determined at that time that stormwater runoff has a significant impact on water resources and the health, safety, and general welfare of the community. That ordinance was adopted to create long-term runoff management required and mitigate those impacts. So you do have a good ordinance in place in addition to some of the DNR requirements. Why do you want to treat stormwater? Again, you're on the beautiful St. Croix River. You have some environmental stewardship responsibilities. A lot of that came out as part of your comprehensive plan. There are two NR regulations through the DNR. First one, NR 216, really doesn't apply to the village of North Hudson. This applied, City of Menominee got brought into the 216 program. Again, these are regulations that are handed down to Wisconsin DNR from the U.S. EPA for communities greater than 10,000. It started out at communities 100,000 or more. We've been told it's going to go down to maybe 5,000, communities of 5,000 population, possibly 2,500 down the road. So you'll have some additional regulations that you'll need to follow. NR 151, that's basically any new development or redevelopment. As you're aware, when development comes in, this also follows your ordinance. Development has to do some redevelopment in terms of addressing water quality, 40% suspended solids, new development 80%, and then your enacted ordinance. So when these developments come in, you have stormwater ponds that you have to own, operate, and maintain. So that comes out of the NR 151 rules.
Russ, go back to NR 216. You said that may go down to 5,000. Well, our population is not 5,000, and I don't. But let me get into a little bit more with that and ask you what are we talking about here? Even if it were to go down to, let's say, 3,000, then it would affect it.
Yeah, if you do get brought in down the road into the NR 216 program, you have to do what's called a comprehensive WPDS stormwater permit through the DNR. So you have to do a stormwater management master plan. So there's some significant costs that you need to do. And then there's annual reporting and permit renewals and so forth that deal with stormwater management. You have to meet different thresholds in terms of water quality requirements through the NR 216 program.
Would that require us then to modify each one of our storm sewer drains?
Yes, you'd be, being that you're 95 or, highly percent developed, in order to meet the water quality requirements, if you're not meeting them with your existing detention ponds and so forth, then you'd have to do some end of the pipe water quality pretreatment boxes and different programs when you redo street reconstruction. Redevelopment projects come in under NR 151, you'd be requiring those developers to do some more to meet your discharge limits.
Okay.
Good question. Also under NR 216, that's your construction erosion control is covered under that too, and then there's some industrial sites that are covered under NR 216. Stormwater runoff, it rains, rainfall flows across different impervious surfaces. And then there's a list of pollutants that are picked up by stormwater, oils, fertilizer, organic salts, and sediments that you'll want to treat before it gets to the river. I talked about the erosion control, existing soils, steep slopes, construction sites with no erosion control. Those pollutants are carried down to the St. Croix and the Mississippi. As I talked about earlier, there's basically two methods of raising funds, just like we talked about the fire protection services. You have your property taxes, or you move those costs to a stormwater utility. Some summarized pros and cons between property taxes right now related to stormwater runoff and storm sewer systems. It's your existing payment collection system that everyone's been using forever and ever. Spreads the cost by property value. The cons related to property taxes are some properties are tax exempt, so that you're not getting any money that's going towards your costs for stormwater management and storm sewer systems. Single family residential pays disproportionately more through the property tax system. And then your current levy requirements make it difficult to finance large projects when those come up. The comparison to the stormwater utilities, the pros are that the costs are spread by what we call impervious areas. Impervious areas are roofs, pavement, concrete sidewalks, and so forth. Non-grass areas are impervious areas. So the users pay more. The areas that have more impervious area obviously would pay more through a stormwater utility. So that's why the burden is shifted away from single-family residential properties more towards commercial, industrial, institutional that have more impervious areas. More stormwater runoff is generated, more water quality problems with more impervious areas. And it operates just like your water or wastewater. Charges can be structured to provide incentives. Example of incentives that some of our municipalities have done for single family. They'll provide a discounted rain barrel program, to promote incentives. Some of the areas in the Twin Cities, if people do individual rain gardens on their properties, they'll give them incentives or structured charges for that. The problem with a small community like North Hudson, would recommend that you keep your incentives to a minimum because it could be an administrative nightmare for staff. The cons in terms of a stormwater utility, the perception that you're taxing rain. You're not really doing that. It's just, again, a different way of charging for the same services you're providing right now. And this is just an example of City of Prescott, some pie charts. And if you decided to go with a stormwater utility creation, would do the same thing for North Hudson. Yellow color is the residential property and a percentage from property taxes that's paying for stormwater runoff. The red's commercial, pink is industrial, and blue is institutional. And then you can see the difference in the color of the pie chart. Again, how we said, residential property will pay more, will pay less. The yellow color got decreased, the red color on commercial got increased, and then the institutional came in on the blue on the stormwater utility. Again, a more equitable way of distributing those costs.
An example of institutional might be the schools?
Would be schools. Yep, university, schools. So
Public
forth.
schools?
Public schools, yes. Churches would be non-exempt. any other non-exempt entities would be under the non-exempt, because they don't pay any property taxes now, but they're still contributing to stormwater costs that you're incurring.
Does the city of Hudson currently have a program like this?
No, they don't, but I heard they're talking about it also, about going through this process.
It then becomes an additional cost for that the Board of Education has to deal with.
Yes, exactly.
Wow.
Right. So if there are anything we want to forewarn you about, if you decide to go through this process, that's where you'll hear it at the public meetings, the hearings, and so forth, are the tax exempt people that this would now get on their bill, the commercial industrial. You don't have a whole lot of large industrial and commercial. Your shop yards are split up between, smaller properties, but you get into some areas like Hudson, with the GM distribution center and a lot of the industrial, those utility bills can be pretty substantial. The eligible cost, typical construction of stormwater ponds, you're really not going to see a whole lot of that in your ordinance. Developers construct your stormwater ponds and then you take them over for operation and maintenance. Maintenance of all your storm sewer system, if you're vacuuming out your storm sewer system, you're cleaning leaves, all that's eligible. Maintenance of detention, retention ponds, your street sweeping, leaf collection, erosion stabilization, and all your administrative costs can all be put under that separate utility.
If I can inject something here, for the board members here, page 10 is probably the most important page of this whole document.
Yes. And the reason a lot of communities are going to this is they're kind of in your same boat, where they have aging systems. We have a lot of communities that are looking 5-10 years down the road, their capital improvement plan. They got storm sewer systems that are 100 or more than 100 years old. They're failing. They're saying as they go through their budget process, like you're going through this year, where are we going to get the money to pay for these? How are we going to finance it? How can we keep more money in our community rather than taking it out of your general tax levy? And, storm events. I had some community, Durand, that's what really, we've been talking about a stormwater utility for years. They had a 6-inch rainfall event, 7-inch rainfall event. The week before, they had a 4 rainfall event, and we've got $800,000 in ravine erosion improvements we're doing this year, to pay for that. So, you have a big storm that comes through the area, it can build up a slush fund to pay for emergency repairs also. And quick, this is a process that you would go through if you decided to create a stormwater utility. Review existing stormwater management plan. You don't have a complete stormwater management master plan for the village. One of your previous consultants did some bits and pieces, but that doesn't matter. We have other municipalities that don't have a stormwater management master plan. Where the stormwater management master plan would help us is determining the capital budget for improvements, future stormwater ponds, piping systems. You're small enough, we'd work with Mark and Gloria and come up with a capital improvement plan, whether it be 5 or 10 years for your stormwater system.
And that would help with grants?
Yes, and then you would also have that in place to apply for future grants. We'd prepare a budget for the proposed expenses. What are you spending now on the eligible costs? Again, on that page 10. Operation, maintenance, debt service, and so forth. That would determine, your budget on a 5 or 10 year period, and then work out to an annual budget. So that would be your budget for your stormwater utility. 3, we would determine an average residential impervious surface square footage and number of single-family homes in the community. And towards the end of the slide, we've got a little example for you how we do that. So a typical single-family home would be 1 equivalent runoff unit, and then we'd compare that to commercial and industrial to come up with ERUs. And then you divide your total budget cost by your total village equivalent runoff units, and that would determine your rate. And that's what we said on 4. That's probably the most time-consuming item is number 4 for us, and in terms of creating the utility, is that the non-single family areas, we have to actually go to your aerial maps, and we have a technician that actually computes the impervious areas for all non-single family areas. So that's probably the most time-consuming part of this process.
Include obviously the structure, but also streets.
Yep,
and
streets, driveways, parking lots, and so forth. So, luckily, you have updated aerial maps. St. Croix County has really good aerial maps that are in digital format. We have those on our system. So a technician digitizes each one of those property and comes up with an impervious area in terms of square footage.
Which leads me into this question. We used to have a warehouse, had a big roof on it. The warehouse burned down. Now we have a big concrete floor.
Yes.
Where it used to be. Now, is there ERU? Has that changed?
Nope. Because you still have an impervious surface with the concrete. If they remove the concrete, then yes, it would.
Okay. When the structure was there and had a roof on it, would that have a different ERU than the fact that now the roof is gone?
No, because they're both still impervious surfaces.
Okay.
But good question. Okay, number 5, quick. How do we determine the ERUs for multifamily? Again, there's several different ways that other communities have done it. Measured it individually, as I talked about, or doing a standard ratio. We look at multifamily and come up with averages. We talked to you about a credit system I talked about earlier for existing stormwater management facilities. If you have a commercial or industrial development that they have their own stormwater management pond and they own, operate, and maintain it, and you don't go in there and maintain it. It was never turned over to the village. We'd work with you on terms of they would get some type of credit system. It wouldn't be 100% because that pond more than likely would still connect to your storm sewer system, so they should still pay some type of fee. So we'll come up with different options for you on a credit system. The incentives for single family I talked about, keep it simple. Contribute to half of a rain barrel program or something like that. Don't go to the rain garden system because you got to send someone out there annually to inspect it. Is it still functioning? It's just a nightmare for your administrative staff. So we'll recommend that you keep that simple. And then at the end, you'd create a stormwater utility ordinance, the rate structure, and set up an administrative requirements. Real quick, this is just the fee example. Just so you hopefully can understand. I believe this is from the Village of Somerset. Fee is, again, based on impervious surface on each property. So we took 3 on the left side. Those are residential areas. So we took 3 different residential areas to come up with an average equivalent runoff unit for a single-family lot. The next slide just shows those same 3 single-family areas. You have an older section in town, just like North Hudson, smaller lots. You got maybe a medium-sized single-family lot and large estate lots. So up in the left-hand corner, those are the different averages of impervious areas for the single-family residential. So we averaged those 3 square footages with different sized lots, and we came up with an average impervious area within the whole village of Somerset as being approximately 3,500 square feet. So that's one ERU, one equivalent runoff unit. So then the other example, we got an example of a commercial and industrial site. We have the square footage. You divide that by the 3,500 square feet, 1 ERU. You come up with 10.25 ERUs for a commercial site and 186.68 ERUs for that large industrial site on the right-hand side. Example rates. They're ranging anywhere from $4 to $5 a quarter to just under $20. I live in the city of Eau Claire. Currently, I'm paying $17 a quarter for stormwater utility, and it goes up $1 or $2 a quarter every year since I've lived there. The Rand, we're probably going to be in that $4 to $5 range. Somerset, probably somewhere the same. Menominee, I think they ended up at $7 to $8 per ERU per quarter. So basically what you set for the rate will really be at your discretion in terms of I talked about all of those costs and what you put into those costs in the wish list. Typically, when we're meeting with staff, everything is thrown into those costs, and then once we determine your village total ERUs and you come up with a rate, you're going to say, well, that's kind of high. We want that lowered, so we just take some of those wish list projects out of the budget and so forth. So, the rate you can pretty much set where you want to
set the rate, so it's covering your costs and putting some money into an emergency fund. So with that, I'll open it up to any questions you may have regarding the creating of a stormwater utility.
This, in effect, the way I perceive this, we already have a fund that operates similar to this. And what this is putting money in the bank and setting it aside for an explicit purpose so that when the time comes, money is there so that we don't have to go out and borrow.
Exactly.
It's our own savings account. It's our own money. And I'm an ardent supporter of doing it this way so that down the road, I don't have to be the one who's sitting before you saying now we have to take out a loan of $100,000 to take care of a problem when it's right there. We can also use it to pay for those items that you saw on page 10. Comments or questions?
Russ, the funding of that is not restricted to any particular ratios or the suggestions you have there.
No, you're not PSC regulated.
Is just the concept of taking the stormwater management costs out of the operational levy, if you will, and then we're just creating a fund again.
Exactly. That's exactly what you're doing. You're not creating something new or something in additional than what you have. It's just moving it from one equitable funding source to one that's more creative.
And
Correct.
don't you think that it's more managed?
Yes,
Because
it's
you're budgeting for
Yep.
those improvements, and you're keeping those in the forefront, and you're not going 5 years without doing anything, and then all of a sudden there's
it hits you.
I
Exactly.
agree. It's
Right.
you know, I can't tell you how many times we don't do something, curb and gutter replacement. I know we just got done with a bunch of that with the 6th Street and some.
Yeah, you have inlets.
stuff.
You're having inlet problems that you're replacing.
And we can't cut that stuff off. I like the concept of it. I will express a little concern about changing the shifting to commercial properties because there's a perception that commercial taxes are best taxes up here too.
Right.
And you put more burden on what small commercial areas we have. But those are down the road questions when it gets to that sort of
Yep.
thing.
No, that's a good point.
But it's all based on the square footage,
The impervious area, right.
the impervious area.
So it's fair.
No, not necessarily.
Why?
Because if you want to extrapolate the argument out, like I said, commercial, say if the 80% of the village was commercial businesses, nobody lives there. All of a sudden you have possibly reduced police costs, a lot of other things that require the other services of that. What I'm getting at is commercial property isn't as much of a burden on our
Some of
operational
the other
funds.
services, I'm just saying on stormwater, it would be a 1-for-1 per square
Yeah,
foot, it would
no,
seem to me.
but I'm just saying I would be one to make the argument that in that ratio, I'd like
Okay.
to see how it's done. But I'm saying that's down the road. I agree with the concept.
Yeah, typically, communities that have a lot of industrial and commercial area definitely balances the residential tax base quite a bit. For that reason that you're saying, right.
And like you said with the the GM building out there, I'm sure the city of Hudson is going to be listening to a lot of those arguments.
Right.
Are we trying to?
And that's, again, like I said, that's the thing you have to be ready for, are those types of business as you
Do
go
we
through
need
this
a
process.
motion to set this up?
Yeah, it's educational right now. I also included, should be in your packet too, we put together kind of a 3 or 4 page contract document that goes into detail the services we'd provide, you know, what your time and materials cost not to exceed would be, and then there's a table and how we split those costs down. So, yeah, it's something for you to think about. You may want to research a little bit.
Well, if you're going to go forward with it, I would say that the contract is what we're asking for approval on.
If you're
not-
ready to do that, if you want to wait a month or two, again, you know, this is kind of the first step we do is educate everyone, ask questions, and then go from there.
What would we be approving tonight to do the contract?
Enter into a contract with Cedar Corporation
To set this up.
set this up.
Yeah, see, I don't know what we would know anymore in a
No,
couple of months.
I agree-
would-
I agree
would say
with Joe.
Let's move on.
I agree with you.
And you have the option as you go through the process and the public meetings, if
Well, then I'll.
majority of the public are against it, you can stop the process
Sure.
right then and there.
Sure.
You're-
Mark,
you get-
did you have something you want to say?
I'll make the motion to begin the process if it requires entry into a contract with Cedar Corp.
And I'll second that.
Thank you, Joe.
To set up a stormwater utility fund.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Got that, Becky?
One of the items that I know, as those of us who had read over the contract when we first saw the amount of the Cedar Corp's amount not to exceed, I'll round it off to $19,000. When I first read that, initially it hit me like, how can we afford this? The more I thought about it, the more I realized, how can we say no and not move forward on this? Gloria and I had talked briefly about this, and that money could initially come out of our...
It could be part of the budget in the utility fund.
In the utility fund.
Yes, you can
And-
recoup that once your
And
utility
we
is
would
created.
recoup that, and then I would anticipate we'd actually be able to lower the annual cost, or the money once that's paid off, we could actually lower that charge to the residents so that it...
Provided there
Because
weren't
it's-
any additional projects
Yeah.
added
I
back
think what
in.
you do is you look at that at an annual basis.
Exactly.
I guess it would be
Exactly.
a charge to the Public Works Committee.
Yep.
Says this is where we are in this fund, this is what we got planned. Are we collecting enough money to do this or not? And then they make a recommendation to the board that they increase it or decrease it.
Well, the only reason I'm bringing it up is I don't want the public to think that this is for free, that there is a cost to set this up. There will be some administrative costs, which would then subsequently come out of this fund.
Yeah,
So
and I think it's important to realize that there are some things that we are just not getting to
That's right.
in maintaining of our stormwater utilities, and if we don't do this, it's gonna be hard, given the budget constraints that we're under, it's going to be very difficult, if not impossible, to take care of some of this stuff. So this is really the only way that we can really get out in front of it and try to fund it. I don't see any way around it.
Well, and it
So-
saves, like this year, if we take it out of the undesignated, or if we get a loan for it,
Yeah.
like George said, we'd be paying interest, so it is costing more. It's possibly costing more.
And then just on a psychological basis, it's very difficult to get the board to approve those kind of funds. You're talking, whatever it is,
Large
$50,
money.
$100,
Yeah.
$200,000 all of a sudden, and never spent that much money before in the budget, so why do you think we ought to spend it this year? And it's just easy to keep pushing it off and not doing it.
We keep postponing some of these repairs until finally get to the point where you have a failure.
So I guess I'd like to call the motion and
I'd like,
move it on.
well, gotta ask if there are any other questions before we can do that. Anybody else have any questions or comments? All right, this is a spending. So this time we'll start with Sandra.
Yes.
Darrell?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
George, yes?
Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
So my question
Thank
after
you.
that
Did we have
is,
Mark?
Thank you.
it's approved. My question, is there anything we can do for our roads?
Actually, that was a discussion also.
But not, or
It's
is
just,
it part of here?
this is a lot to bite off at one time.
It is.
And, but Russ, you can discuss what we,
Yeah, there's, again, for the same reason, other municipalities have been looking at other creative ways. If you read the papers, some communities are looking at road tax, user fees to help pay for roads. I believe Rice Lake is one of the first that has a street light utility fee in place to help pay for street lighting and so forth. So
it would be possible to do something for our roads, because I almost think the thing that we are not doing is we're not maintaining our roads around here properly. We're just not seal coating them. We're not getting enough crack filling and seal coating. And what ends up happening, and as you know, but I think it's important to make the statement to the public, is that the roads deteriorate much, much faster, and then you get to a point where you have to reconstruct the road, and that gets even more expensive. So, the best thing to do is maintain the roads right along with some sort of a plan and fund it, but you end up with a problem.
Just quick interruption here. This isn't on the agenda, and
okay.
Bringing it up as a possible topic for future looking at, that's great, but getting into in-depth conversation about it is probably prohibited.
Thank you. Next month, what do you think? Should we
I don't
put it on
care.
for
I
next
don't
month?
mind bringing it up. You can slap me around. I still think it's
Trouble.
Put me in jail. I don't care.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Appreciate
Thank you, Russ.
I think it's maybe a couple of years.
All right.
No. Yeah, I understand. I understand. It's a good point. Well, it keeps us on track for getting this meeting over with, too. Thank you.
Thank you,
And
Terry.
thank you, George.
We let you go. We gave you just about enough rope that was starting to.
No.
Yeah.
I'll take more rope anytime.
I'll keep a closer eye on him, George.
Gloria, you want to talk about the 201 and the 210 fund? We discussed this briefly at Finance, so we started to run out of time. So,
Well, I don't claim to know all the answers or know everything about these two funds. It's very complicated because throughout the history, the verbiage on these have been interchanged. And people talk about surcharge fund, and they don't necessarily know which fund we're talking about. For the 201, I had it earlier. There it is. Okay, the 201 fund, looking back in documents, and I did give Cedar Corp a copy of all the documents I found, and hoping that if they review through it, they'll come to the same conclusion that I did. But basically, the 201 fund was set up initially as an agreement with the city of Hudson to set aside monies for repair and maintenance of the sewer systems. And somewhere along the line, there was a loan that was gotten from the DNR, Clean Water Fund, and the DNR then required us to add a user base fee to that, which happens to be 12 cents per cubic foot of water usage. Well, in looking at this, it's all for sewer. There's no water main repair. Go ahead.
to make it clear that this time when we say sewer, we're talking about sanitary sewer.
Correct.
In the previous presentation, it was about storm sewer. So we've got two different sewer systems, and we got to make sure that we separate them.
And you're talking
Correct.
about the 201 fund right now?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
It was established to repair and maintenance surcharge, and a replacement fund to fund replacement and repair of sewage collection and transmission laterals, mains, and interceptors. Each municipality shall establish a surcharge which shall be added to the base rate. Well, going through here, it seems that we should have a base rate that is, when we talked about having a storm sewer budget that dictates how much that cost would be, individual cost, it's the same concept. We develop a budget based on what the needs of repairs in the village are, minor replacements and repairs for the sewer system. And then on top of that, then the DNR said, okay, I want this 12 cents. Looks like what we've been doing is the 12 cents, and there was never a base rate established because there is no budgets going to determine that on an annual basis. And the expenses that it's been used for is sanitary sewer and lift station maintenance. And I am going to leave it at that. The 210 fund was not required to be set up, but the village past trustees, in their wisdom, decided to put away money for, now this is for replacement of water and sewer mains. This is not for repair and maintenance. It's for replacement. And that money, that decision was made by the village. It was an option to do that. And the monies that go into that account are the sanitary sewer surcharge that you see on your water and sewer bills, and the lease of the water mains, the money that we get from the city, which is, I'm thinking about $68,000 a year, $70,000 a year. So that money has been accruing, and it's come to a nice sizable amount. But part of the problem is that it's never been really determined what it was actually supposed to be used for. And if the village decides to add an item to this to be used for repair of water lines, there is nothing really that is set aside for water main repairs.
It's just replacement.
It's just replacement. And along with that replacement, when a new development is set up and they come through and they do the water and sewer, there's a special assessment placed on the property. Well, and that's all fine for the new home, but when you're replacing an old system, the village had passed a special assessment policy which states that the money to replace the water and sewer would come out of this 210, and there wouldn't be another special assessment placed on that property.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a way of accruing funds to do those projects.
Have we done that then over the years?
Well, what
happened on St. Croix Street and Helen Street when that was redone?
I believe what happened on those is there was loans taken out, and what is coming out of this fund annually is the principal and interest for those loans.
Okay, so it wasn't assessed to the property owners then? The replacement.
If it was water and sewer replacement, it should not have been. But the sidewalks and maybe
street construction and curb and gutter.
That could be. I believe I verified that because I kind of thought, what? Yeah, not the water and sewer replacement should not have been assessed, and I'm pretty sure it wasn't. But it does pay for it. What happens is I have a spreadsheet that shows which piece of this project was water and sewer replacement, and that is spread out over X amount of years, and it goes against our debt service to reduce the amount of what is paid on those loans. So instead of saying, okay, it was $500,000 to replace this, we're taking $500,000 out. No, we're going to get the loan and take out the principal and interest only, so that there's still money in there in case something else happens that needs to have that repaired.
And that fund has built up.
It's about $500,000 right now, and with the age of what we're looking at in the village, that could go away real easily.
Actually, it can't. It can only go away in increments up to, but not including $150,000 at a shot.
Well, if it was approved by referendum.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Okay.
Would it be, I guess, are we supporting or promoting or trying to include some other costs associated with a 210 fund?
I think that the board should consider, and I'm no way asking for anything tonight, because I'd like Cedar Corp to verify that everything that I have said is accurate.
We don't have any capital projects for replacement of city sewer.
Doesn't mean that we shouldn't have.
No, I understand
you know
that,
what I mean?
but right now there's nothing on the docket that says in 2015 or 2020 we're going to do this project or planning to do this project, right? So the money's sitting there, and right now it's kind of gray as to what this money would be used for. That's all I'm trying to get at. There's nothing. There's no concrete
and that's
specific.
probably why it's still sitting there. Is nobody's doing anything.
I'm not
with
saying
it.
that we should try to invent projects to spend this money.
No.
We simply want to clarify what qualifies for those funds.
Yeah.
And maybe add some water maintenance.
Yeah, exactly like Gloria said when we met with Gloria and Mark this week. You know, if that fund keeps increasing and you don't have a replacement project in your capital improvements in your 5-year program, what if you do have a lot of repairs? So some simple language changes and updates of that language, not that you would use all that money, but it sure would be nice to be able to go to that fund rather than borrowing or getting it from somewhere else. That was one of the key items that we noticed in this old agreement. And then if you really read through it, and the village attorney, when he reads through it too, it is very confusing. So it would be nice to update it and clarify a lot of those issues.
It kind of forces your hand to a certain extent. If you're not maintaining things, then you're going to replace them quicker.
Right.
And so what's the best thing? What's the right thing? What's the most appropriate thing for the village to do?
Yeah.
It's obviously maintain them well.
Right. Repairing and having flexibility to use money out of that fund.
Replace them, if you have to.
Right.
I just want to be clear, though, we can't say from the 210 fund that it's for sewer repair.
I understand.
It can only be for water because we've already got sewer repair in the 201. We're just not collecting what we need to do in the 201 to make it at.
Well, if it's
run
legal
well.
or whatever.
Other words,
it is,
it'd be double dipping.
I would make that motion that we include water as the maintenance of our water and let's see.
I think it's almost mandatory.
Can we
go ahead?
Can we get an issue statement for next month?
I'd be happy to.
Let's, Joe, if we can, let's postpone this so that between Gloria and Becky and Cedar Corp, we can
my
come
question
up with
is
a good.
Okay, my question is this the tool? We have items C and D under number 7 for the 201 fund and the 210 fund. Anything that we do there to modify the words there, is that going to have an effect on our 2010 budget? Do we need to do anything soon than December 1st?
Well, we did meet this morning, and we are a lot closer with some of the decisions that's already been made. And of course, it would help in some aspects, but I don't think it's going to make. No, it's not a make or break here.
It isn't? Okay.
Not
If it's
on this
not,
one.
then I wouldn't have a problem in postponing it. But if it's going to affect our budget very negatively, and we're going to have a tough time meeting it, then I would like to hammer out something tonight so we can get it moving.
We need to make sure the wording is correct.
I don't know if we have to hammer it out tonight, but I would like to see it moved upon fairly quickly so we can have some anticipation for usage of it perhaps in the next year.
So the December meeting, December 1st, is when we can we'll have before us an issue statement that will have been
If the
hammered out.
timing, if it works and all I'm suggesting, I would like to see, and I think everybody else would if
I just, we're biting off two really big projects already that have been approved, and we're talking about street fund, and I just want to not bite off too much too quickly.
I
But I do
didn't put a
understand what you're
timeline
saying.
on when it would get done. I'm just suggesting that the next time we perhaps hear about it here, it's gone to a committee or there's been something more concrete, rather than come back and talk about the plausibility of doing it
no.
again.
No, I just want, first of all, I want this brought up to the board so the board's aware of these issues and this usage. And then I wanted, and they just haven't had enough time with preparing for the other thing to respond to my request, because before we make recommendations, I want to be sure of what we're recommending.
I don't see how you'd get it all done in a month. I think they're good catches for all this, especially the water, because the replacement word is what, got to remember, some of these projects were replacing 2-inch lines going up a street, like St. Croix Street, just as of a few years ago. So the replacement was a big thing because we had a lot of undersized lines in the village. Now we're pretty much up to standard, so to keep the replacement attitude of that fund that way is almost inappropriate, because size-wise we're in pretty good shape, and water lines with cast iron construction, they last a long time. And so I think we really have to move in here, so it's a good catch to do this, I think, because all we have, most of the water costs are replacing water stands, some hydrant work, things like that just need to be done, and would help our budget tremendously next year if we could do those sort of things and keep it out of the budget per se.
Well, that's how this whole thing came about, is when I was desperately trying to figure ways to make the budget work and how we can do what's best for the village.
I'm just agreeing with you. I'm just saying not
infrastructure,
only is it's not an accounting trick, but it's really, I believe, is necessary because the replacement of water lines is diminishing per se.
I just don't want to promise I can get something done by a timelines that I may not be able to.
But what we're saying
we'll
here
try.
is that this issue is, and the wording of this motion is, so it's important we get it correct. So let's make sure that Cedar Corp
Correct.
has a chance to work with us to make sure that we've got it correct, rather than
the
seven of us
question
trying to word it.
Okay,
just
who's
right
got the ball?
tonight.
Is it Cedar or legal? Or
Probably would be a
Public Works.
combination, legal and working with Gloria and Mark, us all as a team.
Ready by next month, or is that what we're getting at? That's fine.
Is that realistic?
Oh, yeah, I think
Yeah.
so.
That's all.
December 1st. Anything else, Gloria?
No.
Shall we move on to Mr. Stanifer and his Public Works crew?
The main item under this area that we need to reference is the completion of the PACER ratings. This is work that is completed every other year, and Kevin and Mark Beckblatt have completed that process. Included in your packet are the maps. You can see the nice color-coded information that has now been completed, which ranks on a numerical scale the quality of the roads within the village. This is forwarded on to Department of Transportation and included in a database. That information is used for a variety of purposes, including some of the grant applications that are used under the local road improvement program, and we're going to touch base on that in a minute. But one of the things that we do need to do with respect to the PACER ratings is accept those and then have Cedar Corp complete their work, which is the forwarding of that information to Department of Transportation, and then providing the ancillary maps that will be available here at the village. We did at Public Works accept those and recommend to are recommending to the village board that those be accepted. and Cedar Corp complete their work. So if that motion would be appropriate at this point, Mr. Chairman, I would so move. Are you ready to accept that?
I am ready for your motion.
I would move that the village accept the revised PACER ratings as completed by Cedar Corp and to authorize Cedar Corp to upload the information to the Department of Transportation website and provide the ancillary maps as indicated for the village, and that should be at a cost not to exceed $1,000.
I'll second.
Any questions or comments from the board? This is a spending motion, so I will ask for a roll call vote. We'll start with you this time, Mark. R.
Yes.
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 Thank you.
And then I did reference the LRIP rating, another alphabet soup tongue twister for you, but it does stand for a local road improvement program. We are in the process of completing an application for a grant under that program that will need to be in by the 20th of November, and Kevin and Mark are working on that, and I've just asked Kevin to make a brief reference to that program, the process that is used, and what that grant would be used for, assuming it's approved.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Daryl. The LRIP is the Local Road Improvement Program, and it's based on every 2 years the Department of Transportation allocates so many dollars to each of the counties within the state. And for this round, St. Croix County has been allotted, it's roughly about $96,000. It's for some of the for road improvements, local street road improvements within municipalities, whether it be a city or a village. Like Daryl was saying, Mark and I have been working on that application. I did give Gloria the form tonight for a signature. We would need to have that in to the county by the November 20th date. And typically what they do is there's 12 communities within St. Croix County, and they will actually approve 6 of them, 6 of the applications. So if you take the $96,000 that's allocated, divided by the 6, there's a potential of about $15,000 to $16,000 that the village could be awarded. It's in regards to like storm sewer improvements, pavement replacement, mill and overlays, those types of projects. The project that we were looking at, that we've been discussing at the Public Works meeting, is the 10th Street project. Some of that roadway, we're looking at doing a mill and overlay, and then some storm sewer improvements for the intersection of 10th and Summers. So I think in the near future, the village will be finding out if they are going to be awarded that. I know as a group, they'll be meeting as a committee at the county at the end of November, and envision like the first part of December. You'll know if the village is going to be awarded those dollars. So.
This is the program whereby you show up and you have a better chance of.
Yes.
Okay, I talked to Tim this afternoon.
Yes.
And I guess I volunteered myself to be on that committee.
Yes, we would strongly advise.
Yeah, that's what he told me. Now, Kevin, I do have a question because he dropped something on me, and I didn't follow up with him because I would be talking either to Daryl or to you tonight.
Sure.
And this seems like an appropriate time. Wasn't there a minimum cost for the improvement for which we might get some money on?
Yeah, it's a 50-50 grant.
Right.
And so if you were to use, if they allocate $15,000 to $16,000, you'd have to have a minimum project cost of around $30,000 to $31,000.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
This does exceed that. One
Yes.
other point, too, in conversation that I've had recently with Tim, there can be the award of up to 6, but it does not necessarily follow that there will be 6. So there could be
Correct.
fewer than that depending upon applications. So if it would be 6, that you divide the 96,000 by 6, but it could potentially be fewer than that, which
Correct.
would mean that there could be, the grants
Yep.
could be larger depending on what the applicant pool is.
When you talk about the 10th Street project, between
Yes.
which and which streets?
It would be from Michelson Street to Summer Street.
And you'd be able to do that for a total cost of approximately?
We looked at that and we came up with an anticipated cost of about $161,000, including.
Okay, we may have to stop 20 feet short.
And that's a opinion cost estimate. If you did go forth and want to do that particular project, we could actually go into a more detailed cost estimate.
We'd have to, because
That hasn't been, I'm sorry,
Right.
that has not come before the board, and I think that it was for budget purposes initially to see, and then it would come to the board, and you probably wanted to know if the LRIP would be applied for. But you did say that the board decided to not, or a referendum had to go across and it wasn't approved, that the LRIP could be allocated. It's got a one-time, could be allocated to another project.
Yeah, there's a one-time substitution that you can ask for from the county. If you remember, the village was awarded some LRIP money probably about 6 years ago for the Lakeview project. The St. Croix Station came on board, and we did do a project substitution for that particular project. It was roughly about $14,000. So you do have up to 6 years for the reimbursement if the village does get the funds to use them.
So it's not something that has to be done in the 2010
Nope.
budget year?
Nope.
I wanted to make sure that was clear. We had discussed that too, but I wanted to make sure it was clear to everybody. It doesn't have to be done this year or even next year.
Correct.
We do it when there's no asphalt left.
All right. And no action is being taken on this. This is just for information. Thank you, Kevin. Darrell, do you have anything else?
That's it.
Okay. Mr. Joe, you got anything here with public
No
safety?
report.
No report. We've already, we're not giving public welfare any more time tonight.
Thank you.
You're very welcome, but we will give the park board a couple of minutes here. So, Colleen, do you have anything about the park board?
Oh, not too much. I did, after last month's meeting, where it was brought up that naming the park and Ridges Development, Chief Rich Jansen Park, Memorial Park seemed too cumbersome. I did talk to his daughter, and she said that she'd think about if she wants Rich left in or not. And she was just wondering if there would be some sort of plaque, saying, having his full name, and I assured her there would be something there besides just the name, so that people, years from now, would know who he was and what he had done. And then we're still looking at getting the playground equipment and that. And so it's still in the planning phases, so of what sort of grand opening we would have once the park is developed. And then continuing to look into the possibility of purchasing the railroad property for development as park. The city of Hudson has expressed some interest in working with us. We're still trying to figure out if that is a possibility to go forward with this. Cedar Corp is helping with that, and there is a possibility of getting the DNR grants. And they may also be able to give us the money if we're approved for the grant, and that we could pay back rather than having to come up with the money ahead of time. As long as we spend the money from them within a certain amount of time, they might give us the money rather than reimbursing us. So it's still, we're still just trying to figure out if it'll work. That's it.
For the park out there.
Absolutely not.
Richard's son's talking to me, he said.
Mr. Zappa, the floor is yours.
Oh,
Is
I
there
move to
anything you'd like
adjourn.
to say?
Yes.
Then we shall
Not bad.
declare the meeting adjourned at
Thank you.
9.
I like the way you do it with the power invested. I thought we were all getting married.